What's going on in Jacksonville? Best you can tell right now.
Well,
if we're talking.
I think that the report that we saw on Saturday from NFL media isn't the cause as much as it's the symptom of what's been going on. There are multiple people in the building that just don't care for Urban Meyer. They don't like the way he treats people, and they have been peddling stories and details and anecdotes for weeks now. It all goes back to when he didn't accompany the team back to Jacksonville after they lost that Thursday night game in Cincinnati, and regardless of whatever photos made the rounds, the key is he abandoned his post. He didn't fly with his team back to Jacksonville, and that emboldened people to begin to talk, and they've been talking, and it finally reached critical mass on Saturday, and that's really the biggest issue that they're dealing with right now. And I know he suggested yesterday whoever the source is will be unemployed. First of all, he's not going to find out who the source is. Second of all, it's not just one person. There are multiple people that are talking to the media. They're motivated to do so because they don't like him. And what the owner has to decide is how long is he going to continue this? Is he going to double down? The dysfunctional teams tend to double down when they make mistakes. The good teams either don't make mistakes at all, or when they make a mistake, they spot it, they rectify it, and they move on. But the indications are that Meyer's going to be back. I just am going to be fascinated, Rich, to see what his coaching staff looks like next year, because he hired these people. They, not all of them, but enough of them, because there's always stuff that goes on in a locker room, on a practice field, in a meeting room, and depending upon what the perspective of the observer is, it can be a big deal or not. We don't hear about that stuff. You only hear about that stuff when people don't like the guy who's in charge. That's the fundamental issue that the Jaguars need to wrestle with. There are too many people who don't like the guy in charge. What are they going to do about that going forward?
Well, it's also the players too, right? Because you can't, look. We were all wondering in the media is how Urban was going to handle losing, and how is he going to handle losses racking up that eclipse number of losses that he would suffer over a span of years or a tenure, right? These 11 losses for Jacksonville right now, 2 more than he had in his entire tenure at Ohio State. You could tell the answer to that question is not handling it well at all, or he handles it in the same way that he would handle one loss in a season. And the problem is that would be an outlier. Now it's a weekly occurrence, and that wears on people. So, the players, though, you can't fire all of them. And those are the ones who are, according to Tom Pelissero, we're talking to Rams players at the end of that loss here in Los Angeles. And that's how stuff gets out, too. Mike.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you completely. The idea that losing a game or two now at the NFL level, it's not as magnified as it is at the college level. And I think that's how he kind of justified rolling the dice with not a great team because, hey, you lose 7 or 8 games, you're still in the playoff hunt in the NFL. Well, you lose 11 and you're done, as the Jaguars now are. But that's part of what he has to deal with. And you can internalize it or you can externalize it. And it sounds like he's spent a lot of this year, instead of holding it in, taking it out on anyone who happens to be around, because it's not his fault. It's never his fault. Nothing's ever his fault. So it must be someone else's fault, and he's, by all appearances, done what he can to put the blame on anyone that he can find to blame except himself.
So, and one thing that he said he's not used to, talking about, I guess leaks and people talking about him like they talked about him, is playing out the string, which is what Jacksonville's doing now. So what happens over the next 4 weeks in your estimation? Crystal ball with any knowledge you may have about how expensive a move it would be to move on.
Well, no one knows what he's making. We reported back when he was in the market for an NFL job, he was looking for $12 million, and there was an angry reaction to that, which means he wasn't getting anywhere close to $12 million. The best number I can piece together is $6.5 per year plus some form of incentive package possibly, and that's a lot lower than what we thought an Urban Meyer would make when he makes the jump to the NFL. So I don't know what the total buyout would be, how much is guaranteed, how many years go out there, but it's a big check if you want to move on. The question becomes, what will Shad Khan do about this? And the Jaguars have a unique structure as it relates to PR. For certain things, when you ask the team for comment, they send you to the owner's spokesperson, a guy named Jim Woodcock. And so when this comes out, hey, Jaguars, what's your comment on these reports that these things happen? They send you to the spokesman for the owner, and he says no comment. And I went back and forth with him yesterday, and he eventually sent me an article recently that was published in the Florida Times-Union where Shad Khan has a bunch of different comments, and he talks about failure and dealing with failure and how he's dealt with failure in the private sector and how it's different in sports because everything's magnified. But you get the impression that he's not going to just cave in. He's not going to give in. I mean, he's got the lowest winning percentage of any owner who's had a team for the amount of time that he's had the team, 10 years now. And the total number of games, no one has been more unsuccessful than him. So I guess he's kind of used to it, and I think he is going to be inclined to double down. But, all it takes is one moment. All it takes is one thing. You never know what that straw is going to be that breaks the camel's back. And remember this year, the window opens 2 weeks early on potentially moving on from coaches and interviewing guys who are working for other teams. That's something that the league put through in October, and that could cause some teams to start firing coaches 2 weeks before we're accustomed to the coaches being fired. So the window opens not in 4 weeks from today. It opens basically 2 weeks from today.
How about that? Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.